Well, welcome Teen Engineer students. This is Mr. Oman. I'm going to be showing you how to draw the Keepsake box using TinkerCAD today. Here's a finished example of one that I drew for you. And we're going to be following the directions over in Canvas. There's written directions right there, which I'm going to use the most, but there's also pictures with measurements, engineering drawings for you to see as well if you need more detail. So I'm going to show the written directions on the right half of this screen while I draw on the left half. I suggest you watch for 30 seconds or a minute and then pause the video and try to draw with me. Okay, if you would hit your settings button, make sure the show grid box is checked so the blue grid is showing on your screen. It probably is already. And then if you would all click on snap grid and check 1/64, so your grid has small grid squares. That'll be necessary later for us. Alright, we're going to start off. Let's draw the front and back walls together since they're very close in size, or they're exactly the same in size. We'll draw one and then copy it over to the other one. Save us some work. Okay, over in the directions, our front and back walls are 3/4 of an inch thick. So I clicked on the corner dot, the corner grip of the box you see on the screen. So I typed in 0.75 thick by 9.25 long, and notice I'm clicking on that white grip in the top middle part of the box, and it's hard to drag it to the exact correct measurement, so I'm going to type 4. 4 is that measurement, so 3/4 by 4 by 9 1/4. So that is one wall that you cut out in the shop. Alright, before I copy it over to the other wall, I'm going to do some of the details. Like I'm going to do the rabbit cut ends. I'm going to cut out the legs so that those end up on the other piece. Alright, so I dragged out a gray box, which means it's going to become a hole. Alright, this is going to become these are going to become the rabbit cut ends. So these are 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.375. 0.375 is the same thing as 3/8. Do that for both of those dimensions you see there, and I just dragged it. It doesn't matter how tall it is, so it's taller than the board. Make 2 copies of it, and watch closely on this part. I selected one of those 2 tall skinny boxes and the red wall. And I'm going to use the Align tool, and notice which dots I use. I'm lining up the edges and getting TinkerCAD to get both of those lined up perfectly in the corner. Okay, I use the group button to cut them out. So this other one, I'll do the same thing. I line it up over on the far corner. I'm probably going a little bit fast for you here, so feel free to pause or rewind 10 seconds using the arrow on your keyboard and watch again. Alright, so we're going to be doing a lot of what you just saw there on this project. Okay, we're on to the leg cutouts. So this is the stuff you cut out with the bandsaw to create legs on your box. So I grabbed a gray box, I dragged it out there, and I'm going to change its dimensions by clicking on the corner grip. That's that white dot, and change it to 3/4, which is 0.75 by, looks like 6.75 long, and this is a 1/2 inch tall measurement, so 0.5. And I'm now going to select both of them, use the Align tool. I'm going to use the center align button in both directions. So you got to click those black dots. You can either align it with the edge or the middle. I'm using the middle alignment. Okay, and then I grouped them both together, which causes it to cut out the gray box from the red. Alright, next up we need to cut out the bottom grooves. In other words, that groove that I cut with the table saw for you all. We're going to cut that out here so that we have a space for the bottom piece of the box to sit later on when we make that. So that thing is 1/8 of an inch thick. 1/8 is 0.125 if you need to type that in. 1/8 by 3/8, which is 0.375. And I typed in 40, it looks like, on Canvas. That's a little excessive. It could be 10 inches long, just so it's longer than your red board, so 10's fine. And let's see, do I have my height correct? No, the height's still at 1 inch, so looks like I need to fix that. I guess I'll try again here one more time for you. So the height is 0.125. Length is 10, and the width is 0.375. And now we're not going to line it up with the edge exactly. We will line it up in the center, but we need to drag this thing up. So you got to click on the object, grab the black little cone at the top, and as you grab the black cone, notice a vertical measurement right there pulls up. I need you to type in 0.75 so that it's set 0.75 up from the bottom of the box. Alright, so the groove should be just over the bottom cutout, just like that. I use the align tool to center it and line it up with the face. And I grouped it together. Alright, so I have one of the walls done. I'm going to make another copy, and I'm going to drag it over to the right. I'm holding the Shift key down on the keyboard to drag it straight. If you don't hold down Shift with one hand while you drag it, it'll just be kind of random. I like to keep things lined up. Alright, so one of these is the back, and the other one's going to be the front. You might recall that the front has just a couple extra details. There's a rabbit cut up in the top edge that you did with the router. So I've got my gray box dragged out here for the top rabbit cut, and this will be 3/8 by 3/8, so in other words 0.375 by 0.375 and 10 inches long. And let's select both items and line them up. Once you've got those typed in, so select both the gray and the red wall. Use the align tool. I'm going to use the top edge and center it, and notice the corner that I just clicked on right there. Alright, and if that goes well, you can group it and cut them out. Alright, so this becomes the front piece because of that cut. And let's do our thumb hole. As well, you might recall the thumb hole was a half circle that you drilled. Alright, so I'm going to use the gray cylinder. I did drag a work plane out there. I put the work plane right on one of the vertical faces of the box to make this just a little easier. Alright, I'm going to change the diameter measurements to 0.75 in both directions for the cylinder. So that's the size we used out there. Select them both. Use the center align button right there to get it right in the middle. Center it the other direction, and then group them all together to cut it out. There you are. There is our thumb hole. Okay, so we have our front and our back. They are done at this moment. Okay, things are looking good so far. Feel free to pause or rewind and rewatch as necessary here. And I'm going to drag another blue work plane out into the white space, so it just resets it to the original space. Do your best to stay as close as you can to that blue grid. If you get way off to the side, you'll get some error messages. You'll see that coming up in the video here. That happened to me. I tried to draw out here too far away, and it made me drag my parts back to the grid. Doesn't like it if you get too far away. Alright, so we are onto the left and right walls. Go ahead and drag out a red box, and your left and right walls are 0.75 thick, 6 3/4 long, and 4 inches tall. So they should look like the same height as the first two walls we made. Okay, drag a gray hole box out there, and let's do the cutouts for these as well. They're similar to the other cutouts we did on the longer walls, but they're only 3.75 long this time because the wall's not as long. Alright, so 0.75 thick, 1/2 inch tall, and 3.75 long. And grab that top middle white grip and type 0.5. Okay, that looks like it's correct to me. So I'm going to center it using the Align tool. Click the middle button this way, middle button that way, and group them together to cut them out. So there's your legs. We still need to do our rabbit ends. So those are still 3/8 by 3/8 by 10. So 0.375 by 0.375. At this point you could copy them. I chose to line this first one up right away and then copy, but again, make sure you get it right in the corner. So pick your alignment buttons wisely for that. Here I am making a copy for the other end. You want to do that before you do the group, otherwise you lose the opportunity to copy. Alright, here's where I ran into problems by having my project too far away from the grid. Yeah, it gives me an error a couple of times here. And I thought, oh, maybe it's too tall. Nope, still an error message. So eventually I figure out that I need to drag these all back to the grid. So if that happens to you, that's how you solve that. Anyways, it works for me this time when I group it. There it goes. I select them both, line these ones up on the other corner. Okay, so my rabbit end cuts are done. Okay, I'll make a copy of this one. Now I just realized I never ended up cutting out the bottom groove. That is a mistake on my part here as I'm making this video. So if you notice that, good for you. So yes, please draw the bottom groove cut out. Use the same bottom groove listed in the front wall, so 1/8 by 3/8 by 10. Go ahead and cut that out even though the video doesn't show it. And they're 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of those walls. Alright, I'm going to move on. I'm going to make the bottom board at this time. Okay, this will just be a simple skinny little rectangle that fits in those grooves. So this board is only 1/8 of an inch thick, so 0.125 is your height measurement. And your width measurement is 6 and length is 9. Click on your corner grip so you get both measurements to show up. So at this time we're going to start the top piece, also known as the lid. So start by dragging out a box onto your screen. Okay, and we're actually going to make this just a little smaller than what the measurements say here. So stick with what I tell you. Alright, so the box should be 0.75 tall. That's how thick our boards are. Alright, even though the directions say 5.5, we need to make them 4.75. Okay, so 3/4 less than what the directions say, because we need to do a little round over. Okay, so stick with me on that part. We'll come back to that. And 8.5 is still the length. So even though the directions say 4.5 wide, I'm sorry, 5.5 wide, do 4.75. Okay, please drag a work plane onto the edge of that piece, similar to what I did, and I just dragged a half cylinder and I rotated it, and I'm going to resize it. So to rotate it, I use that little circular arrow on the bottom, and I rotate it 90 degrees. So I might need to pause and do that for the video keeps going. And I'm going to change that little half circle to be 0.75 wide, 8.5 long, and I'm going to center this thing. So here's the round over. So this is the rest of the piece of that did not get accounted for by the original measurement. So now this thing should be 5.5 wide. Alright, next up we need to cut out the front rabbet cut. So grab a gray box, drag it out, and actually I'm going to reset the work plane here first. So I grabbed a work plane, dragged it out into the white space, and I'll try it again, and we'll cut that out. So grab a gray box, resize that down to 0.375 tall, which is 3/8, 3/8 deep, 0.375, and 10 is fine for length, just so it's longer than that board, so we can cut it out. Alright, select both items, let's line it up. So the front edge, and center it the other way. Right there. So it should be on that bottom front corner for cutting out, so that's what you cut out with the router. And let's group that. And the round over is all joined together. Okay, and now it's about time to put it together. If you wanted to do the pegs, you're welcome to do that as extra credit. There's information so you can do that. That's on Canvas now. But there's no video instructions on how to do it. Alright, I guess I should probably come back and do the bottom groove for you here. Sorry, this is a little bit out of order. Here is the bottom groove on those two walls that I failed to put it in there earlier. So the groove is 0.38 deep, 0.375 deep, excuse me, 1/8 of an inch wide, and 10 inches long is fine. Make a second copy. Alright, we're going to need to drag this by the black cone, drag that straight up. We're going to drag that up 3/4 of an inch here in a moment after we line it up. Oops, that did not go as planned right there. Let me try that again. Alright, so I've got it lined up with the front edge. It's centered. I still need to drag it up by the black cone. Type in 0.75 right there. Okay, feel free to pause and get that right. And then you can group it together to cut it out. So there it is. And I'll do the exact same thing on these other ones. Center it, line it up with the front edge. Grab just the gray piece, click on it, grab the black cone, excuse me, 0.75 high, right there. Alright, now it looks like it's time to put it all together. Alright, so I'm going to drag the bottom piece. I'm going to get that up in the groove here. Alright, so I elevated that by 0.75. I'm going to center it this way. Alright, I'm going to go over to and grab another wall. I rotated the front wall around so it's exactly opposite of the back wall. I'm going to get my two end walls in place next. We'll need to rotate those. Again, you have to pick the correct circular arrow for rotating. There's 3 choices there. And so I rotated that one 90 degrees, and this one's going to be negative 90 to rotate it the other direction. So these are all facing each other, and like you see. Alright, so we're going to be using the Align tool a few times to get everything assembled to finish our project up. Alright, so here we go. So let's take the back and right side walls. I only selected those 2. Okay, line up the edge, line up the other edge, and now you'll see that these overlap each other, which is not correct. We do need to fix this. So I'm going to click on that wall and zoom in. I'm using the arrows on my keyboard to shove this over just a little bit, so our rabbit cuts match up perfectly. Okay, I'm now going to select both of them and join them. So this will be considered one object in just a moment. You'll find out if you don't do that join, it'll pull one wall away from the other here. So that's right there, that's not what I intended to do. So I'll undo that. Okay, and I realize, oh yeah, that's a problem. So I'm going to use the join tool to make these into one piece. Okay, so when you grab one, they both come together. Alright, that's important to join them before you move on to the next thing. Alright, I now selected those 2 walls and the bottom, and I'm going to center it. So it's now sitting in the groove, and I'm going to join those so they're all together. Okay, I grab this one, hit the Align tool. I select all of them except for the left wall. Looks like I changed colors there so you could see the difference. Alright, so back to it. Select the big group and the next wall that you want to join together. So really there's just two objects now. Okay, line up the ends, line up the center, and join it together. Alright, I'm going to use the arrow key on the keyboard to push that to the left and get it lined up. Select all of those and make a new group. So now we have that all as one item. And if you're not sure if it works, try grabbing it with your arrow and dragging it to see if they all go together. And then lastly, I'm going to line up the last wall. Use the arrow keys and then join the whole thing together. Okay, and finally your top piece. Okay, grab the top piece by the cone and drag that up. Alright, let's drag that up 3.25. I know it says 4 there, but you'll find out that this is too much. Let's only do 3.25. Okay, so I'll try that again. Drag it up so the dimension shows up and click on it, 3.25. Right there, and we can center that. Looks like mine needs some rotating here. I didn't realize that right away, but looks like mine's going to go together backwards here, but I'll correct that for you. So center it in both directions. You'll see that my round over is in the front, which of course is not correct. So I'll select it, find the correct rotate arrow, and I'll type 180 to get it to spin around. And I'm going to nudge it forward with the arrow keys just a little bit too. Alright, that's upside down, so that's not correct, so I'll undo that. And if you go to your top view, like I did there, it's pretty easy to see. Alright, so this needs just a little bit of adjusting, so perfectly centered is not exactly right. Alright, so I nudge it towards the front, and that looks pretty good. Okay, the rest here I just kind of mess around with colors. Feel free to change it to be transparent. If you check the multicolor box, you can keep all of your original colors before you join them together. It's always a good idea. If you want transparent, you can see through it. I chose to go with transparent so you could see the inside of the box for this video. So anyways, feel free to pick colors that you like and make it fun. And that's the end of your box. You can turn off the grid too if you like.